go for two, huh? Welcome on in, Silver and Zach. The punch to the love. I'm the love. He's the punch. Sean O'Connell joins us on Twitter at Real OCSports. I am at Zach Sports on Twitter. Follow us both so you can keep up with all of our podcasts and all the stuff that we do. That would be nice if you did that. So follow us there. We start here. Well, actually, you know what? I want to start non-sports, OC, because you and I tend to frequently go off the Richter. Have you ever heard the phrase, I need a vacation from my vacation?
Yes.
Okay.
Typically reserved for family trips that don't go well.
Yeah. So I kind of had a bookend of that. My birthday was last Saturday, and just drama-filled USA. I don't think they're listening to the podcast. My pop too might listen. I know his wife won't, and she was the source of the drama. Anyways, and then we had 5 great days where we golfed and we fished, and I, threw a bow, shot a bow and arrow and threw an axe and did all the white stuff that I normally don't do here in the Bay Area. That's why they call me Black Araya. I get my white out when I go to Michigan, Anyways, the last Saturday we go to the casino, and for once in my life I won, and my pop 2 gets pulled over, and they make him do like the field sobriety test and all that stuff, but he knows he's under. He had like 1 beer though over the course of like 7 hours, so he knew he was under, and he kept telling the cop, he was like, "I'll take a breathalyzer right now so we can just get this over with." Instead, he made it an hour-and-a-half thing. He gets released because he blew like a .02 or whatever, which is like 1/4 of what you would get popped for. And anyways, we drive back home. We're in a good mood, and then more drama, and that was my last night. So both Saturdays were complete horrible, just completely horrible. But the 5 days in between were great. But I'm back now. I look like Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I look like I had a long vacation, because sometimes that statement is true, OC. Sometimes you need a vacation from your vacation.
Well, I'm glad that you went back and got in touch with the Paul Bunyan in you. Okay.
I did. You would have been so proud of me. I was ripping hooks out of fish. I was shooting birds. I was throwing axes. It was like I wanted you to be there.
That's how I envisioned you in your natural state. Like
no.
I imagine
state is this guy over my right shoulder at a hip hop concert, dancing vigorously, getting ripped, weed smoke around. I don't smoke weed, but there'd be weed smoke around me, Tupac, and that's my natural state. But I love getting in there and, touching my inner white guy. Well,
we're proud of you. We're proud of you for doing it.
Lots of American flags, OC. I mean, it was a sight to behold. I was in God's country. You know what I mean?
That's all you need.
The whole fishing thing. Have you fished a lot in your lifetime or no? I've never asked you that.
Yes, love fishing. My wife loves fishing. My wife is a great fly fisher woman.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, the part that I can't wrap my head around, I've gotten as far, I finally did it this trip, took the electric saw and ripped the heads off of the thing that I can't get is the smell. Like when you pull the fish in, you got to grab, first of all, it's all squirmy because it's still alive. So it's moving around and it's slimy and nasty. Then you got to grab it. Then you got to stick the hook in, yank it out, throw it in there. I mean, everything just smells. There's blood and worms everywhere. Like, I don't know how you can get accustomed to that. Well, and I've been doing it for 12 years now.
I don't know how you can be, I mean, you live in Berkeley, right? Like you are at the doorstep of some of the great outdoors. Obviously,
nobody fishes in Berkeley.
Not in Berkeley, but you're telling me that you are near a bunch of within an hour and a half of a bunch of really great places to fish, hike, camp, hunt, all of these things, and it's still completely foreign to you. It's amazing.
Well, I hear what you're saying. There is proximity in terms of all of that, but I'm telling you right now, OC, when I come back home and talk to my friends on the different threads that I have, they all can't even believe that I can put a worm on a hook, let alone doing all the other stuff that goes into fishing. Nobody fishes. I don't know one fisherman. If I wanted to fish next weekend, I couldn't do it because I wouldn't know anybody. I'd have to go hire somebody. Anyways, that leads us to the Raiders, OC, And I've never actually, in all the time that you and I have been doing stuff together, I've never asked you what your thoughts are in terms of uh, analytic versus old school football. Do you put a lot of stock into the people that say that this is what obviously I'm talking about the Raiders going for two and whether or not they should have just tied the game up. We'll get to that in a second. But I want your more like macro view. Like, are you into the people that dig into what you should do, or are you more of like a gut guy?
Well, I think that making the marriage of those two things is the right way to handle it now, because it would be foolish to not use the tool that is analytics in sports, right? We have all of this data. You've got all these databases. Everything is compiled, and you can get percentages and statistics and all that kind of stuff. But if you blindly only follow the numbers, you ignore things that are really, really important, like momentum, like injury, personnel, all that kind of stuff, right? A situational call, like, do I go for two to try and win the game, or do I kick an extra point to tie the game? A situation like that, if you're just being purely analytical and going only off the data, you could potentially be ignoring like who you have available to you. If the other team now is heading into overtime potentially without a serious weapon, we just had. I know that we always talk about the pro football side of these things, and it's a perfect one, right? The Raiders and the Chiefs, great example of this. But you go back to college football, the best game of the weekend this past weekend was Utah versus USC right here in Salt Lake City, and going down, scoring with 47 seconds left, Utah at home decided to go for two to get the win instead of kicking to tie. And what's the old adage? On the road, you go for the win. At home, you play for the tie because home field advantage. But Kyle
Yeah.
Whittingham and his crew had paid attention to the fact that their team had not been able to stop a runny nose the
Yeah.
whole time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Didn't want to go into overtime against the high-powered USC offense. Didn't want to have to get into a set play shootout with Lincoln Riley, who's one of the best offensive geniuses in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So, feeling the momentum, living in that moment in the crowd, decided, you know what? Let's cap off this drive with a 2-point conversion and get the win. And that's exactly what happened. So, analytics is a tool that should be incorporated into what you know about your team, your personnel, and of course, the situation.
So you're a little like what I wish every politician would be, which is a little from column A and a little from column B.
You gotta
Unfortunately,
be like that. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I think in football, I mean, I would have to go down the list of the coaches to tell you for certain, but I feel like it's a lot less like that. I feel like you have the dinosaurs, the old school guys, play defense, run the ball, don't take chances, blah 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 blah. And then I feel like you have like the new age guys that look into all that. Like, I don't think there's a lot of people that do a mixture of it. And obviously for the Raiders in this situation, I was watching the game and the Raiders fans were going crazy. How could you be so dumb? Of course, they get it and win, and then he's a genius. I'm kind of more with you just in terms of um, go based on feel and like you said, injuries or momentum or game flow or whatever it is. But in that particular situation, how did you feel about that decision? Since it seems like both of us would kind of do a hybrid of that. I think I'm more on the dinosaur side, that I wouldn't take chances like that. But what did you think in terms of that particular time?
I think that even though the outcome is not what you wanted it to be, I think that going for the win against a team that you, in a truth telling moment, you know is a better team than you. Chiefs are a better team than the Raiders, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Giving yourself an opportunity to make one play and potentially get out of there with the win is probably what I'm going for,
Okay.
rather than extending the game and going into overtime, because the longer these things play out, the more likely it is,
Patrick Mahomes is going to be better than Derek Carr. Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
The more you can do to keep a game out of the hands of Patrick Mahomes,
the better.
I probably would go for that. And
Well, just tell the Bills that.
yeah,
Yeah. No, so
it's
yeah, I hear you. I mean, obviously, hindsight's always 2020. I mean, it just looked like a situation where it was like maybe just be happy to be tied. But yeah, I mean, Jacobs had been running through the Chiefs D, and when you're only 2 yards away from a win, I can understand it. But obviously, going back on it, it looked really bad. In terms of the game in general, I think you brought it up last week.
Can I say one more thing though?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
When you are going, like, there's two calls there, really. There's two decisions that are made. Am I kicking the extra point, or am I going for two is obviously the most important one. And then one that's very close to that in terms of importance is, what is the play call? Like, what are you doing to try and make the 2-point conversion happen, right? And that's where some criticism can come in, is if it's like, you watch some of these end of game scenarios from NFL and college football, and it's like, okay, I understand why you decided to go for the score there instead of kicking. Who was it? Arkansas and Alabama did this, where, I don't want to, or was it Arkansas and Georgia? I don't want to play for a tie because they're better than us. But then the play call, you're just like, what? That's the play call. That's the play call you go to try and give yourself the best chance. And that is where I think there can be a little bit more room for criticism. Like, I don't know what the right play call is there, but in most cases, it's getting the ball in the hands of your best playmaker and giving that person options, not just, all right, that hole better be there or else you're not scoring. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, you and I don't do debate first take sort of radio and stuff like that where we like purposely disagree. I mean, shout out to Stephen A. Smith. I think he's one of the most entertaining people on the planet. But a lot of that stuff can be nauseating. But this is a rare circumstance where I disagree with you on both fronts. I wouldn't have gone for it, and I liked the game. I liked the play call. Jacobs had cut them up for 21 for a $154, 7.3 yards on the carry. You got your team where it looks like the Chiefs are on their heels, and you give it to, I mean, he got stuffed, and you live with the results. But a lot of that is micro. But let's go macro on this. Were you not impressed with how close the game was? Do you think that this was a sign? Because you've been calling me Raiders colored glasses and blah 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 over the first 6 weeks. But did you take away from this game that the Chiefs are not as good as most people think, or that the Raiders are not as bad as their 1-4 record says?
I think a little bit of both is true in a game like this, right? But man,
in Kansas City, OC,
no,
Arrowhead's not a comfortable place to play.
Not only is that not a comfortable place to play, Arrowhead is the only place we've seen in sports recently that has gotten referees scared, right? Because of roughing the passer calls.
Really?
Dude.
Oh, I haven't read that article.
The roughing the passer call, where.
Oh, you're talking about this game?
Yes.
Yeah. But the Chiefs got a little home cooking on that field goal attempt as well.
Correct, but the roughing the passer call that Chris Jones, right?
Terrible. By the way, I'm thinking a Neanderthal like you. Now, when I say Neanderthal, I just want to make sure the audience realizes that you are a very loving, nice person, but you also are a caveman, like an actual 2022 caveman. So I'm just saying,
fish. Yes.
Yeah, I'm guessing when you watched that, you wanted to bleep yourself.
It makes me nauseous.
Exactly.
The idea that, that Tom Brady can be thrown to the ground and that's a roughing the passer call. The idea that Chris Jones can possess the football, strip the football and possess it when he lands.
Isn't it supposed to be, hang on real quick before you continue. Isn't that supposed to just be a loose ball at that point? Well, doesn't anything go?
It's not even a loose ball. He becomes the ball carrier. He possessed the football. So now anything that happens, roughing or not, is he being roughed. He was the ball carrier in that split second, right? That thing made me sick. So Arrowhead got those refs shook because they were freaking out and they were so upset about that. And I mean, you saw the head official, the next couple of calls, he'd go to turn on his little microphone to announce what the flag was, and his voice would be cracking. It's like,
I didn't even notice this.
Holding number 66. Like, he was scared for his life at Arrowhead. Understandably so, because that call, that's a macro thing we can get to here in a sec. I don't mean to derail us from our Raider
Yeah,
conversation,
yeah.
but like that call,
The excuse was right that he put his weight on him.
but he put his left hand down.
I know he purposely tried to not put his weight on him.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And by the way, he possessed the football. So at that point, why are we protecting who is just like a random? It's just a random body on the field. The quarterback doesn't have the ball anymore. He's just a guy. You know.
But okay, but let me ask you this: you played special teams at Utah. How often does the team going against the field goal get called for a holding call on a special teams play?
Yeah, it never happens.
I mean, what was that? Like a makeup call?
Yes.
I mean, anyways, you could just cancel those two out because it should have been a strip sack for Kansas City, and Kansas City shouldn't have had the opportunity. By the way, just random, weirdly, I have to make sure I get this in case I forget. How many times do you see a guy catch 7 passes for 25 yards? That's 3.6 yards per reception for 4 touchdowns. I don't think I've ever seen that. Literally, I mean, I can look it up, I suppose. I don't think that's ever happened in the history of the NFL. Maybe like a fullback or something, but 7 catches and 7 catches and 25 yards for 4 touchdowns for Travis Kelce. He's a hell of a weapon, huh?
He's unbelievable, and it's a super rare thing. There's only a couple, like Taysom Hill. You'll see Taysom Hill with kind of these weird stats.
That's
right?
a good one. Still not 4 though, OC.
No, but he'll get like 3 touchdowns, like 2 of them rushing and 1 of them receiving,
or
with
passing,
like 30 total yards.
Yeah,
and you're just like, oh, okay. And it's because, but that's a guy who's only used in goal line situations in red zone offense. Kelce is an every down player. He's like the second best offensive player.
Who's that on though? Is that on the linebacking crew or the safeties? Who's that on?
We'd have to go back and see what the defensive calls were and what they were in. In Kelce's, there's nickelbacks lined up on Kelce sometimes. You got to know, like, we'd have to go back and watch every call.
I think it was mainly, I mean, when I was watching, it was mainly the linebacking crew, which to me, if I'm the defensive coordinator, I'm going to all my linebackers and go, anybody but Kelce can beat us. You know, like the wideouts there on the DBs, obviously, you know, the quarterback, the defensive line has to deal with that. But you linebacking crew, you all focus on Travis Kelce.
You know what? We have to get a defensive coordinator on this show with us. I want someone to tell the truth, or maybe, you know who'd be the right person to ask? We got to get like Patrick Willis or some retired NFL guy to come on and tell us the truth about whether or not coordinators are willing to do that. Coordinators are willing to say, just sacrifice whatever you have to sacrifice to make sure that guy can't beat us. Like bracket him, double team him, hold him, pull his pants down, whatever it is, right? I think that in the NFL, there's less ego about it in college football. And in high school football, if you pay attention to that, all you do is you find the best 4 players on the other team and you tell your best 4 players, like, all right, you spy him and you spy him and you 2 spy him and make sure that guy can't beat us, right? I think in the NFL, there's this reluctance to say, Kelce is just better than you are. So we're going to give 2 or 3 people to stop him. Yeah. I think that they don't like
a pride thing, like an ego thing, like they don't want to admit that he's just doubly better than every one of your individual linebackers.
Yeah, because you don't want to tell Denzel Perryman, like, you're 5'11", dog. You can't actually cover him.
You can't hold him. You
like,
can't.
You're really good run stopping linebacker.
Sometimes truth hurts. Like I knew my liabilities when I played hoop. I knew I couldn't jump. I wasn't trying to do something. I wasn't trying to catch alley-oops. I knew that I could rebound, defend, and shoot a jumper.
But that's what I'm saying, because like it shouldn't be as difficult as it is. It seems like to fully take away a Travis Kelce, a Tyreek Hill. Debo's a little bit harder to take away because of his versatility as a weapon. I mean, I just mentioned Taysom Hill. Why is Taysom Hill like this overly strong white dude who's otherwise like kind of unremarkable from a skill standpoint? Why is he able to score 1 out of every 3 times he touches the football? Because they're not willing to just be like, oh, he's on the field. 2 guys just run and hit him. Don't worry about reading the play. Don't
Yeah.
worry about doing anything else.
Yeah.
Just if I'm wrong about this as a coordinator, I will eat that. Okay.
Yeah.
I will fall on that sword.
Yeah.
But if I'm playing against the Chiefs and I'm in a goal line situation, I'm saying you could give me like a DB who's 6 foot plus and give me a linebacker who's 6 foot plus, and I'm just saying, linebacker, you press man him at the line of scrimmage. Okay, you get yourself in his pocket, and DB, you
That's your
come
job after that. Yeah.
and you could no, like you're both going to stay on him the whole play, but you're just going to be like linebackers underneath and DBs over the top. I know that I'm oversimplifying this, but it's crazy
No,
that
I know. Because
we're
I
letting the
mean,
same weapon.
one touchdown, 2 touchdown, and then you're like, okay, a third touchdown, a fourth touchdown. At what point? But yeah. Anyways, so in terms of the play calling, I found a lot of the stuff interesting. It was a 30-29 game, and so it's hard to really give credit to either defense. But in this day and age, with scoring being so high, I think it really came down because I look at the play calling. I can't really. I mean, Devontae Adams only he had 7 targets, but 3 catches for a buck 24 and 2. That was another ballsy play call that they did when they aired it out, going for it on 4th and short. You thought they were going to run it up, and they aired it out to Devontae. But Jacobs, 21 carries, a buck 54. He was 7.3 on the ground. How much more can you give it to him? I think this ultimately it came down to, and again, another double-digit first half lead that the Raiders blow. But I think ultimately this was a game that was 30-29. But I think both defenses did a lot more than you would think looking at the box score to stop the other team.
Crosby had a great game. I would have expected that if you can hold the Chiefs to 30 points, because they're going to score more than this on average for the year, right?
Mm-hmm.
That if you can hold the Chiefs to 30 points, you've given yourself a chance to win the game. And that's exactly what happened here. Like, the defense did enough. It's not always going to be pretty. You and I have gotten to this argument on a podcast before. Like, a 1-point win is just as good as a blowout win, especially against a team like the Kansas City Chiefs, right? So having an opportunity late in the game, closing sequence, to go for a 2-point conversion and get a win, to kick a field goal and get a win, to whatever, drive down in a 2-minute offense situation and get a win, all those things, you take it every day of the week against a team that is perpetually considered a Super Bowl contender. So only love for the Raider defensive performance in this particular game. And at the end of the day, giving your offense a chance to win is realistically the baseline expectation for a defense in the NFL now. Because everything is so skewed offensively, and because all the rules, the pace of the game, the way we protect quarterbacks now, even the way the game is timed, everything is for scoring and for offense, and to perpetuate that and to make it more exciting for fans to watch. So gone are the days, mostly, where the defense can win you a game without the offense really kind of like carrying the load.
Yeah.
The defense's job in the NFL now is just keep it close enough for your offense to make the plays, and the Raiders did that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, there's been a couple of those. I'm thinking Niners Broncos, which, boy, if the Niners don't make the playoffs, they're going to look back on the Falcons loss and the Broncos loss and just want to puke. But yeah, I mean, you're right. This is not the days of Chuck Noll and Bill Cowher and the Steelers and the Ravens and Ray Lewis and Trent Dilfer winning Super Bowls. That's not going down. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have quarterbacks in the Super Bowl that are like the ones that we saw last year, who are just remarkable and lighten the scoreboards up. So yeah, I'm with you on that. And like I said, it was weird because 30-29 is not like your slugfest, but it just seemed like with these two teams, I mean, the difference was the Raiders kicked field goals in times where they could have scored touchdowns, and the Chiefs, they scored all 4 of their, they scored their 4 touchdowns, and that was kind of that. And Derek Carr, no picks, 2 touchdowns. Mahomes, the 4 touchdowns that we talked about, to Kelsey, and no picks either. I mean, They went back and forth and they went toe to toe. But as Derek Carr said after the game was over, you know, we were close, but close ain't good enough. But I think 30-29 in Kansas City. I think most Raiders fans would take 30-29 in Kansas City. Now it sucks that you're 1-4. If they had taken care of business against the Cardinals and they were, 2-3, or if they had taken care of business in other games and they were 2-3 or 3-2, I think a lot of Raiders fans would be encouraged by losing by 1 on the road to a Super Bowl favorite.
That moral victory thing is a slippery slope, and I don't like getting into that because you can't. Kansas City is a good team. Are they a great team? Are they an elite team this year in the National Football League? I guess we'll find out in the next 3, 4, 5 weeks. But getting into that moral victory thing and being okay with a loss just because it's close is a dangerous thing for a team's culture. And the players and coaches aren't going to feel that way. Whether the fans do or not is inconsequential. But you're absolutely right. For the Raiders, if they win a game they're expected to win, right? They perform better in some of these games that they should have won. I throw up the air quotes, they should have won. Then it doesn't feel so bad to get a close loss to the Chiefs because if you were, like you said, you beat Arizona, you beat Tennessee, you beat Denver, and your only losses were to the Chargers and the Chiefs, even though those are divisional losses, you're looking at things just a little bit differently. And you're saying like, okay, next time, we'll get them next time. This team's got some growth still to figure out, but we'll get them next time. But a loss like this one, heading into a bye week, you hope that whatever you saw on film is something that you can fix and you can work out with the extra time to practice.
Are you totally out on their playoff chances at 1-4?
We've seen stranger things, but I don't know where you make up ground that you're going to need to make up, right? I mean, you're better than Denver. You're a hell of a lot better than Denver. But do we think that there are 3 teams from the AFC West that are going to make the playoffs this year? I say no.
Yeah, I just don't know what to make of Herbert's rib injury. I know we talked about it last or a couple weeks ago in terms of how you deal with that, and it's just something where you're just going to be in pain. But I mean, he seems to look fine. So if he ends up being fine, then yeah, I mean, you're right. There'd have to be 3 teams out of the AFC West that make the offs. There is the extra wild card, but
you're right now. You're 3 games behind the Chargers, and you're 3 games behind the Chiefs because they both hold the tiebreaker over you so far.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, at home against the Texans, at the Saints, at the Jaguars, at home against the Colts, at the Broncos, at the Seahawks, and then at home against the Chargers, at the Rams, at home against the Patriots. Like we talked about in-game decisions and momentum factoring into that. They could be riding a lot of momentum if they get after the Texans, Saints, Jaguars, Colts, Broncos, Seahawks, and then you have the Chargers, Rams, and Patriots. I mean, if they're going into that with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if they're going into that on a 6-game winning streak and following a 1-point loss to the Chiefs, then all of a sudden I wouldn't be shocked if they won at home against the Chargers or at LA against the Rams or at home against the Patriots. Certainly not at the Steelers.
You think this Raider team is going to go to Seattle and get a victory?
I do.
Okay.
100%. I would be shocked if they lost.
All right.
If you go to Kansas City and lose by 1, you need to be going into Seattle and winning. Okay. I mean, Seattle's a different beast. I went to a Chiefs Seahawks game there, and they're literally so loud that they have a ticker. They have like a count on their scoreboard that counts the amount of offensive false starts because of how loud their crowd is. Correct. So that's kind of a different beast. But forgive me, OC, if I don't believe in Geno Smith.
I won't forgive you. How dare you doubt Geno Smith?
All right, let's go around the rest of the league. A lot of stuff to unpack. I just wanted to briefly ask you what your. Go ahead.
We're going to spend exactly 100% of our time going around the rest of the league talking about how terrible the Denver Broncos are and how awful that situation is and how $245 million has been spent on the most washed weirdo that has ever played NFL football.
Easy. Okay, first of all, he looked good on some plays. He's not. I wouldn't call him like necessarily immediately washed. I mean, he doesn't look as good. I think a lot of that has to do. It's his first year there. He's got a new coach, a new offensive coordinator, new linebackers, new running backs, new wide receivers. It's not like he looks terrible. It's not like Peyton Manning when he won the Super Bowl and he couldn't throw for 4 yards, or Ben Roethlisberger where he couldn't move 4 inches. He doesn't look washed to me. It's a terrible situation where
He was
you and I
three of
both agree.
11. He was 3 of 11 for 15 yards down the stretch in that game, and
Yeah.
you can find at least 2 screenshots of wide open. I'm talking about there is no one in the frame
Yeah,
with
I know.
this man.
The footage is
Wide
bad.
open receivers that old Russell Wilson used to hit and find, and now he just doesn't. What do you want to say? What do you, if you're not willing to say? And by the way, this guy, his teammates don't like him. The media doesn't like him. The league doesn't like him.
Yeah.
Like,
No, it's not easy to defend Russell Wilson right now. But I will just say, in terms of the way that he looks and the way that he's playing, yes, he's missed like on that. First of all, how have they been on like every primetime game for the entire season? Seems
by
like
itself,
they're either on
no
Sunday night
competition.
football, Thursday night football, or Monday night football every week. But anyways, that one where the receiver slammed his helmet to the ground because he was so damn wide open, and they missed because they went for the win. I mean, the coach obviously has got to go, and Russell's got to find some continuity. And yes, his off the field stuff, the whole TikTok and married to Sierra, whatever.
Did you see what Marshawn Lynch, beloved Bay Area icon Marshawn Lynch, said on the Richard Sherman podcast about his former teammate Russell Wilson?
I did not. Was it bad?
Marshawn Lynch.
Just paraphrase. You're not quoting him. Just paraphrase.
Marshawn Lynch told everyone his former teammates, Marshawn included, have to go through Russell's business manager to set up phone calls with him. Not allowed to have his personal cell phone number. You have to call Russell's business manager to make an appointment to talk to Russell if you're someone who shared the field and the locker room with this man. Marshawn Lynch, beast mode, is telling people that, and you know that this man lives by a code. Marshawn lives by code. He's not going to put your business out there for no reason.
Snitches get stitches.
That means the bridge has been burnt between Russell Wilson and the coolest cat in the game.
First of all, that's not far from you. Now, you've never sent me through a manager, but you're the busiest person on the planet. So you should actually be siding with. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, I know. And all the reports of why he got out of Seattle or got traded from Seattle is that his teammates didn't like him. And I can't help but think, I hate to blame it on the woman, but once Ciara came in the picture and he won the Super Bowl and he was getting all the commercials and doing all that stuff, I'm sure that's where a lot of that stuff popped up. But in terms of his productivity on the field,
don't blame it on Ciara. Don't put this evil on Ciara.
Okay? Hollywood. Okay. Not Ciara. Hollywood. Is that okay?
If you want.
I'll put it up. Red carpets, all that jazz. That's when you need to tell Marshawn Lynch to call your manager instead of calling you directly.
It's silly.
Anyways, yeah. So that's bad. But speaking of bad, what do you got to say about your Niners? I did not see that coming. The Falcons, apparently, I was reading an article. They're playing like everybody super tough. They're the only team to cover every spread since the season started. Are they actually got like what's going on there? Mariota? I mean, because the Niners defense, I mean, I think they were literally missing 11 starters by the end of that game. And I think 7 of them were on defense. But even in that Monday night game against the Rams, where they made Sean McVay and not Goff, but Stafford look very horrible. And they didn't have a bunch of starters in that game. And I was like, that's just a testimony to how good their defense is. But did you make anything of that game, or is this just a throwaway that they're missing so many guys? How the hell are you going to compete?
It's really hard to judge a team based on its backup personnel, right? So throwing it away is probably not the right thing to do because if Shanahan is this genius coach that he's supposed to be, and if Jimmy G is the savior of all things, like you claim he is, like you should be able to beat the Atlanta Falcons. They're not good. They're maybe gritty and tough and like kind of like a fun story, but they're not good. They're 2-1 at home, so I guess if you're a Niner fan, you can be like, oh well, they play tough at home. The saving grace for the San Francisco 49ers right now is their division stinks. They're 3-3 and they're first in the NFC West, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
The difficulties that everyone else is having, and the fact that Kingsbury's the worst coach in the NFL, well, probably second after Hackett in Denver, makes the Niners takes a little pressure off because they can get away with some of these mistakes.
All right, I know you only have 7 minutes left, so divide your answers accordingly. Tua coming back after what, 2 weeks off, 2 concussions, or one documented, the other one not so much. They say he's passed all the stuff. Coach came out today, did a press conference, said that he's good to go, ready to rock. I don't know. As somebody that is an expert in concussions, would you toss him out this week, Sunday Night Football against the Steelers, or do you think it's too soon?
I think that the Miami Dolphins need to exercise the most extreme of cautions when it comes to Tua, because that was such a high profile, bad scenario, mishandled situation. They fired the independent neurological consultant who was involved in making sure that he was able to get back on the field, claiming it was a back injury. The league has gone back to the drawing board to modify the policy, all because of this player and what happened to this player. So if you rush him back onto a football field, it's just going to look bad for your organization. I think that, Tua and
Do you think this is rushing him back on the field?
yeah, so I'm not a medical expert on this, and you and I talked about this on a previous podcast. I think Tua is one of these guys who's got genetically predisposed to quick recovery, and like his head clears quickly after he's concussed and things like that. There's boxers
He's an
that are this
Islander.
way. There's
Yeah.
there's fighters that are this way. Like Tua probably is that, but you better be talking to him, his family, his agent, his team representative in the players union itself, and be like, look, we're not going to put him on the field unless we are 100% certain that he's ready to go, he's willing to go, he wants to go. The players union thinks he should be going right now. Like, the Dolphins have to be so careful that they handle this the right way moving forward, because they handled it so poorly in such a public manner when he actually got hurt. So I don't put him on the field. I probably just say, look, man, until I have like 15 different opinions of doctors saying it's okay for you to play, and your mom tells me she's fine with you being out on the field, and your attorney says I absolve you of all guilt if there's another concussion here, I'm not putting him back on the field. This is something that will threaten the very fabric of your team culture and your franchise if you get him hurt again. So I'm waiting.
Okay. I would just say, and we can save this because we don't have enough time for me to like really get into it, but I would just say that I haven't blamed the Dolphins for one thing that they did, because the bottom line is, if you have somebody that is medically trained and gotten their license or whatever, their degree, whatever the hell, to tell you what to do, and he passes everything, even if he's lying, whatever, yes, you could use your own discretion and say, even though you passed everything, but I'm not going to tell a lawyer that he's wrong. I'm not going to tell a doctor that they're wrong. I'm not going to tell you anything about MMA because you're an MMA expert. Same way I wouldn't want you to tell me anything about Tupac. I have a degree in Tupac. You know what I'm saying? So
right. No, you're right. Like,
all I'm saying is, my guess is everybody is telling them that he's good to go for Sunday night against the Steelers. And even if he gets concussed in that game, you can get concussed anytime.
Right. But we have data now, and we have like basic knowledge that the likelihood of you getting concussed again after getting your first concussion or your second consecutive concussion, it just makes you more sensitive. Like,
well, it's worse, right? It's also worse. It has longer effects.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
what are you saying? Never let him play football again?
Well, why let him play? He's a young man. So why let him play in 2022 if you think it's going to permanently damage his ability to live a quality life when he's 45 years old?
Because he's saying everything's fine, and doctors are saying the same thing. Anyways, let's move on. Another thing that you're an expert in, the Chargers Broncos Monday night game. By the way, just if I never watch another Broncos game again, it'll be too soon. I mean, just get them out of there. But I just wanted to ask you briefly, because you were a special teams guy, is that on the guy that's trying to prevent the the defender that's coming in for the punt and he backs into him? Is that on, like, should he just get out of the way? Because
Yes.
if you fair catch it, then he can just catch it and it's on the defender if he hits him.
Correct.
But since he hit that guy and then hit him into his own guy, then it's a fumble and the game's over. Is that on the blocker?
Yes.
Okay. So when they do film study, he's going to get the crap for doing that. He should have got out of the way.
And the return man is going to get crap for not telling people where he's at. Like, it's an unfortunate situation, but when they're, like, you'll see if a punt gets shanked and goes short, right?
Uh-huh.
The return man will run up to all the guys who are turned around running towards him, and he'll be waving, fire. He's like,
get the
away.
hell out of the way. Yeah.
Everyone's just supposed to run to the sideline. You just right angle and you go to the sideline so that the ball doesn't accidentally hit you and become a turnover that the punting team can now recover again. Like,
interesting, because that's the second time that happened. That happened in the butt punt with the Dolphins. Same thing happened. The guy that was protecting him, he kicked it off his butt, and it was a safety. They almost lost the game because of that. But
the butt punt is one of the worst plays in NFL history.
Well,
that is the butt fumble.
Yeah, well, I saw Mark Sanchez, and he was like, "I've now been redeemed. Like, my soul is cleansed."
It's like when Jimmy G ran out Dan
Orlovsky.
Dan Orlovsky was like, vindication.
Exactly. All right, buddy. Well, you have a good week. Raiders are going to rest up. We'll probably just do a general NFL thing next week, and talk to you then. On Twitter, at Real OC Sports. I'm Zachariah at Zach Sports on Twitter. Follow us. It's been the Silver and Zach cast. Holla, OC.
Bye. Don't play, Tua. Don't play.
Voice sounded great, by the way.
Well,
Killed
I
quick.
didn't do my show yesterday.
Salt water?
I gargled salt water and I drank this, what's it? Not chamomile tea. Hibiscus tea with honey. Good stuff.
From the caveman. I'm leaving this in, by the way. See you, buddy.